Everybody watching us live, this is Omega Live TV. My name is Linda Appiah. I'm a barrister and I'm here to host the Legal Hour. Now I know you haven't seen me for a while, but business sometimes takes over. But I'm here with you this evening with some fantastic guests to have a really in-depth discussion, hopefully, about an area that's important to many of you. What are we discussing this evening? We're looking at the issue of business visas. Specifically, we're looking at sole representatives. But I want us to look more at the broader area of business visas first before we go into sole representative to understand who they are, how you can get such a visa, what are the requirements. As many of you will know, the immigration rules chop and change from one moment to another. So my guest this evening will help me to explain to you what the business visa types are and how to find yourself in the correct category. So first, I'm going to introduce my guests. Of course, I have sitting closest to me, Mr. Reza Sorabi, and Reza is a consultant at ACG Legal. Now, Reza, everyone would like to know, how are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Good, and how was your journey getting here?
Yeah, it was not that bad.
Good, yeah, not too much traffic, I think, hopefully. And then also I'll introduce my other guest. My guest is Grace Osawale. Grace is a solicitor. Grace, welcome this evening.
Thank you, Linda. A pleasure to be here. Hopefully impart some very useful information to everyone watching.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you, Grace. So as I said, what are we here to discuss this evening? As I said, business visas. So I'm going to start by asking Reza Sorabi here, to help us understand what categories of business visas there are before we go more into, as I said, sole representative, to look more into those details. So Reza, if you could start off, if you wouldn't mind, with really answering the question of what types of business visas we have.
Yes, we have investor visa. Is the minimum investment is £2 million, and we have Innovator Visa. If you have got a £50,000 and have got a startup idea, we have a startup visa and we have sole representative visa. The investor visa, if you have a £2 million, after 5 years you can apply for settlement. If you invest 5 million, you can apply for settlement after 3 years, and if you invest 10 million, you can apply for settlement after 2 years.
But let me just clarify. When we say million, because people are watching us from all over the world, what currency are we talking about, Reza, before people get excited? Yeah, so we're talking about £10 million, right?
Yeah.
So the more money you have,
yes,
the quicker the route to settlement, if that's what you're looking for, of course, in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
Go on.
one common question people ask, buying property doesn't count as an investment.
Which is a pity, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
So must be investing on other area of like a government investment or private bank or any other area. And for Innovator Visa, it's a similarity with the startup visa. Both you need to have a unique new idea, but startup is for 2 years and doesn't lead to settlement. So after 2 years you need to switch it to Innovator Visa, and the startup doesn't need any investment money, just your idea. If you can get endorsed by endorsing body, then you are qualified to apply for startup visa.
That's a quite complicated one, isn't it? And
yes,
that needs a lot of support and help. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the people approach our company because these days the all type of the business visa is not only legal. So you need to look at the different aspects of the business, like a business advice, market research, about different area of technology, because most of the startups is linked to the technology. You need to get the expert advice from those specialists. In ACG, we have specialists in different fields, so we provide our clients with everything from initial advice about the business go to the market research and help them to prepare the business plan to get endorsed. We have various endorsing bodies. Some endorsing body, they are specialized in some area of startup.
Yes.
And then when this stage is completed, we refer them to our legal team. They look after the legal part.
Sure.
Yeah. And for sole representative visa is for those people who already have got a business overseas and they want to open a branch in UK. So the person must be employed by the main business overseas, so they can come and work for that business in UK. They can, all of these visa you can bring your family. For Innovator Visa, after 3 years is a short period of time. After 3 years can lead to settlements. So if you start with startup visa, which is 2 years, and then you need to switch it to the Innovator Visa, 3 years. After 5 years in total, you can settle. But if you start initially with the Innovator Visa, after 3 years you can settle here.
Okay.
So that is the advantage about timing. And a year after, you can apply for British passport.
Lovely. Thank you. That's good. Quite comprehensive. So I turn to Grace. Grace, is there anything else you want to add to that before we go into the sole rep?
No, I mean, I think you've pretty much covered the business visas as a whole. You know, what we will say is that for the tier one entrepreneur, for the tier one investor visa, I mean, the benchmark is very high. You see, you know, that 2 million. You know, we're finding that people are a little bit hesitant in terms of wanting to, you know, make the full commitment to getting the visa. But there people ask a lot of questions about, you know, what they can do, you know, and it's not as restrictive as some of the other visas, the other business visas. So, you know, if clients are in that, you know, that bracket in terms of their, you know, their net worth, then it's certainly something to go for, because you have an accelerated process where if you're looking for settlement, you can settle earlier. But, you know, investment goes up. You know, the shorter the time, the more the money the Home Office ask for. So pretty much Rez has covered those, you know, really well.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace. I'm going to stay with you, Grace, if I may,
Sure.
because as I said, we wanted to go into the sole representative area, as I say, sole rep area of business visas. So can you just expand a little bit more on what a sole representative visa actually is?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, this visa is essentially for somebody who's already working for a company overseas, and the company have taken a decision that business is doing well and they want to open a branch here in the UK. So the sole representative is the person who represents the overseas company here in the UK. They're going to come in and establish the branch. They're going to effectively be making a lot of the decisions about the business, not in complete autonomy, but, you know, making all the important decisions, because effectively they're here as the sole rep. To advance the business, the overseas business, you know, in terms of the markets that they're trying to break through, in terms of their visibility as well. So that's the basic principle of a sole representative visa. The overseas company has a sole representative here in the UK who's running the office here, you know, to expand the business. That's essentially what it is.
Yeah, so even though it may sound obvious by calling it sole representative, is it truly the case that there is one person, sole person, who is permitted to get a visa to come to the UK under the umbrella or heading of that one company? Yeah,
I mean, it is a company can only have one person under that visa, you see. So you can't have two, you can't have three, you can only have one. What can happen though, and this is, you know, a progression in terms of the businesses doing well, is that the company in the UK then decides, okay, look, we need to employ people, you see. So at this point, they can go for the skilled worker visa. So that means, and of course, you can have people working from within the UK, but also you can bringing people from abroad.
Yes.
I mean, there are lots of hurdles to go through before that happens. That I don't want to.
That's another day, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds simple when you say, but actually
Yeah.
there are quite a number of hurdles that you have to go through. But effectively, you could build a team here in the UK from a mixture of people who are already in the UK, but also people who know the business, have worked with the business for a long time abroad, and essentially you're saying that is the right person to build the team here in the UK. You see, so yes, you can only have one sole representative, but actually in time you can build a team of a combination of people from the UK and overseas, to run, to expand the business.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are any categories or types of businesses that wouldn't fall under the sole representative visa? I mean, I'll give an example. I mean, I had a client who was running a charity. So an international I say, but had different branches in different countries, but hadn't established a branch in the UK, but it was a charity. Would you be of the view that a charity, for example, would fall under that umbrella? I
mean, where a charity, we have to look at the purpose of the charity.
Yes.
If it's a not-for-profit,
yes.
I haven't actually come across that scenario, I'd say straight off, but I would probably say that if it's a pure charity, that it probably wouldn't satisfy, all the tick boxes for the sole representative visa.
Yes.
It just doesn't seem to fit. I mean, a charity, you're doing whatever the cause is, that's for, it's a community thing. It doesn't really fit into this idea of a business.
Of a business, exactly.
Business here in the UK.
Exactly.
So we could go back and check this, but I've not seen a situation where you have a charity that's looking to establish its branch here. I've not seen that.
No, I agree. Reza, do you have a view on that as well?
I think Grace is right, because it's mainly for businesses.
Yes. So it's for profit, isn't it? They want to see your books, they want to see all sorts of things, won't they, before granting it?
But it might be a case, because some organization, they register it as a charity, but they have revenue.
Yes.
And that with employing people might be a way of that, because if they is a huge organization, although that is registered as a charity, but can employ a lot of people.
Yeah. Or they may have a business branch, for example.
Yeah.
So there are some ways perhaps around it, but just straight off the bat, as a pure charity, not.
I would say my instinct would say no, but I mean, we can make very quick checks with the Home Office that have a support line for this sort of stuff, just to ask those initial questions, and then from there you've obviously got the base of which what direction to go.
Indeed.
If that's something that they really want to push through with.
Indeed. So then it sort of leads me on to sort of the next one. So okay, I run. Let's use me example. I run a company overseas. I want to send someone abroad. I think, I'm going to go abroad. I'm the chair, the director of that company.
Sure.
Can I, as the head of that company or organisation, be granted a sole rep visa?
There are conditions. So, I mean, one of the what we do in the firm is we will vet a business, and we'll look at what they're looking to establish. And there's some key questions that you're always going to ask a business overseas in terms of the eligibility for this visa. So, to answer your question, if you are the director of the company, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what is your shareholding in the business? Because this visa specifically says that you cannot be a majority shareholder if you're going to be a sole representative. You cannot be the person, who owns that business essentially. This is for a member of staff. And I think that sometimes that gets missed. It's really for a member of staff who's already been recruited overseas to come over here and run that business. That individual has to know the business overseas. When we're putting documents together, I'm looking for, okay, what's the length of service with the company? What are the skills and the experience? What's the seniority of that individual? Would they be able to come to the UK and establish the branch? What does that tell you? That means that of course they have to know the business, the English has to be to a certain standard, experience is key, you see, because there's no point in that person coming here and not fulfilling, what the outcome of the whole purpose of going through this visa is. So there are some key eligibility questions that we're going to ask any business that's looking to establish a branch here in the UK. And one of the first questions we ask is, what is your shareholding? If you've got if you're a director of that company and you have a 49% share, that is still a green tick because you're not a majority shareholder.
Sure.
You see, so, you know, I mean, you probably want to know more in terms of eligibility, but that's a key one. You know, if I continue, I mean, you're looking at things such as, you know, where is the business, is it viable for that business to even think about having a branch here? So the Home Office asks for accounts.
Right.
They ask for accounts for two reasons. That business is genuine and it's operating, but also, does it make sense that this company has the means, has the sort of foundation to establish a branch?
Also, presumably, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But why would you want to establish that type of business in the UK? That sort of business doesn't fit with the UK, with its direction, with the economy, etc. Lots and lots of different things that may be in Home Office's mind when they're looking at such an application.
I mean, again, you touched on there, it's down to, you know, does it work? Has the market research been done? You know, one of the key documents in this whole process is the business plan. You know, what is the business plan telling somebody who knows nothing about your business? What is this company intending to do here in the UK? Does it make sense? Do they have the means? I mean, you could look at the turnover of the business.
Yes.
You know, a business that's doing minimal turnover, why would you want to establish a branch in the UK? Does it make sense?
You can barely keep yourself afloat where you are,
Exactly.
for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of different components that the Home Office want to look at to know that this is genuine. And in fact, genuine becomes the key word because, you know, that's something that the Home Office introduced back in June 2020.
Yes.
You know, they want to know that this business is genuine, and there's certain things that I will be looking for to say to the Home Office, this is a genuine business. This is not just for the visa.
Yes, exactly.
So, you know, there's some key things there. If I go on.
Yes, of course.
I mean, I would certainly be asking the individual concerned, are they prepared to stay in the UK for a stretch of time?
Yes.
Sometimes, I'll give you a typical scenario. You'll have, let's say you have a director, he's a busy person, he's flying all over the world, you know, making contracts and doing all the stuff that entrepreneurs do, but he's a non-majority shareholder, you see. So the question for me is, yes, he can come and establish the business, but does it make sense for him to do that? What's happening overseas? Is there a team overseas that look after the main business in the UK, in the overseas territory? Because one of the conditions is that the business must maintain the centre of operation in the home territory. They're not looking for businesses to, you know, bring all the operations to the UK.
No, so because otherwise, sorry Grace, because otherwise that's almost like doing a type of investor type of visa,
exactly.
isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So they're looking for a situation where, yes, this company is looking to expand. They need one person to start off with to run that business. But if it's a small company and it's one director, he's a non-majority shareholder, if that person is the centre of how things are running when you look at the structure of the business, then, you know, Home Office can maybe come to the conclusion that, you know, you're not looking really to maintain the business overseas. If this one individual comes to the UK, what's happening abroad? Do you see? So we're looking at so many different variables when we look at whether it's viable for the application to be put forward for an applicant, the main applicant. You know. So I mean, I could go on. There's lots of different conditions, but I mean, I've got a checklist here.
I'm sure you do.
Because
it's not so. It's not that it's not straightforward. I mean, we don't want to frighten people to think, oh my God, they're never going to do that. That's just too difficult. But I think the reality is that as time goes on with most visa types, the list starts to incrementally get a bit longer, or the Home Office get a bit tougher. Because certainly I spoke to you earlier, didn't I, Reza, about that? And you were talking to me about when you're comparing the different types of visas, the type of visa we're talking about, the sole representative visa we're talking about, is becoming a little bit more challenging because, to be frank, there seem to be quite a few people who are using that system and perhaps not following through, let's put it that way, once they arrive in the UK.
Well,
there's also that, isn't there?
Yeah, that's true. There are some genuine, as
of
in
course,
Greece,
yes.
So they can get the sort of percent, but from our consultant, they advise a lot of clients who they want to prepare a business plan for sole representative visa here. there are a large number of refusals. The main business overseas doesn't qualify for, and the Home Office believes the main purpose of this is a visa rather than establishing or expanding the business. But there are others, they can get it, but there is another possibility for the people, the Innovator Visa. So this visa, if somebody wants to start business here with a startup idea and with the £50,000 investment fund, they can get this type of visa, so you don't need a business overseas. And if you genuinely has got an idea for a startup and business, this is a better route.
The key thing there is the actual idea. Because the Innovator Visa is becoming quite a challenge to get people through on, you know, the innovation, the viability, the scalability, which are the key, you know, tenets of that visa. So, you know, even with our firm, we are talking to the endorsing bodies about, you know, what they're looking for essentially when, you know, someone has a business idea. And, you know, prima facie, if the business idea looks good, endorsing bodies will work with the applicant to try and pull them through the process. Because, you know, I won't go into too much detail, but it makes sense for they want to endorse good businesses. You know, Home Office has given them, you know, like I said, a green tick to say, yeah, this is a good business. Home Office have handed it over to those endorsing bodies. So for us, the key thing is to be having a continuous dialogue with the endorsing bodies so that we know what they're looking for. At least if we don't know exactly what they're looking for, we can at least present them with something that looks like it could be a goer. And, you know, the feedback that I've got is, look, you know, as solicitors, don't worry about the idea. Send it to us. We'll make that decision. And if they need to sort of signpost, they're taking in a slightly different direction for it to come under the innovation, you know, they're happy to do that. And, you know, different endorsing bodies have their different criteria of what, you know, how they take people through the process of getting the endorsement.
Perhaps one thing that I want to point out is that we have mentioned the investor visa and all that sort of stuff, but the one visa that I think quite a few people are still asking me about, that I think the Innovator Startup has replaced, is the Entrepreneur Visa. I still get,
but that's gone.
I still get people asking me about that because they've heard about that because that was in the system for quite some time.
This is a totally different. The main difference is for the old entrepreneur visa, you could do any business. So restaurant, anything. It doesn't have to be new and innovative.
I mean, they were still restricting the property. You still couldn't do property businesses like you mentioned earlier.
But you didn't need to show it was something new. You didn't need to have any of those sort of checks and balances that they have now. You didn't need to have a branch abroad or the head office rather.
It was easy.
You didn't have any of those. So that for some reason that I'm sure politics will tell us, or the politicians will tell us, that has gone.
That has gone.
So that's why we're talking about startups, sole representatives, those types of visas.
Absolutely. And what's happened is that closed, I think that was March 2019. And then what we saw was a sort of a rise in the sole representative visa. Now what I will say is that, you know, entrepreneur was based, the old entrepreneur visa was based on the points-based system. So you get the points, you get the visa. The sole representative visa, although we do have, you know, eligibility things that we need to check off, we need to vet the client, it's actually, in some ways, a little bit easier. What I say to my clients is we're not going to take them through on this visa unless we know prima facie that all these yeses are ticked. You know.
Wait, I'm going to stop with the prima facie. No, that's all right. Only because some of our viewers, that's all right, lawyers speak. When we say prima facie, what we're simply saying is that at first instance. So at first blush, when you look at it first, this is what we see. But go on, you go on, Jen.
So as I said, we're not going to take somebody through on this sort of visa where, you know, we don't have the green ticks. Once you've passed that stage, now it's a question of give me the paperwork. You see, now what we find is that, you know, businesses abroad run their businesses differently to how UK businesses run. But essentially, everyone, employees are paid.
Yes.
They're normally paid through their bank accounts.
Yes.
Every business is going to have accounts that they have to do every year.
Mm-hmm.
Share certification is what we look for as well. So what we're asking for is not actually, bring it from the sky. It's stuff that the business should already have
anyway.
in place.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, normally we don't have those sort of issues with, okay, we need this paperwork. Okay, explain to me this. You do sometimes have to pick through things because it's sometimes not obvious that this is the salary because it comes in a different format to how you would normally see it here. But once your client is able to explain, right, this is how we get paid, it's paid this way, and again, there's different countries have different systems. But essentially, we're looking for an employee who knows the business, who's skilled, who can run a branch here. The business is still going to maintain its presence. In fact, the centre of operations maintains itself in the home territory, but they're looking to establish a branch here to grow. In terms of if we move the conversation forward and we talk about settling for visas and that sort of thing, you settle after 5 years, but there are what we call residential requirements.
Yes.
So, if someone if that is one of the objectives, and it shouldn't really be the first thing they're looking at, I have to say, well, a key one for me, and this is actually not some people saying, no, I don't want to go forward with this, is that they have to be in the UK for 180 days, so essentially 6 months of the year. They have to be in the UK. If a director of a business who's and this is a point I was going to make earlier, but I kind of got off track. If a director of a business is a non-majority shareholder, okay, and he is the person who is looking to be the sole representative of that business, we have to have a serious conversation about staying in the UK for 181 days, actually, because, if they don't satisfy it, they won't qualify.
They're not going to get there.
So you could argue that, look, the whole purpose of this was to establish a business, and you can reap the rewards of a successful business from wherever you are. But of course, there's the sort of the cherry on the top, which is, I'm running my business, it's doing really well. I want to settle, at some point, and that's a very serious conversation that I have with people right at the beginning, actually, of the whole process.
Can I just check one thing? When you say the 180 days, what period does that 180 days run from? Is it from the inception of the visa, or is it a particular shorter period during the 5 years?
So what they call permitted absences starts from the moment that visa is granted. You see, so normally what happens is once the visa's been approved, the applicant has 3 months to basically get themselves together to come to the UK. And the clock starts to count from that period, actually. So from the moment you get the grant, and it actually depends. So there's certain instances where you can do it from, I believe, from when they come to the
date of entry. Yeah.
Date of entry, exactly. But the clock is running, and so what I encourage my clients to do is to just always keep if that's the goal, always keep an eye on, your comings and goings.
Yes.
But if it's an employee of a business, that person really and truly should be here. For most of the time, because they're essentially, they'll be going home for leave, annual leave, holidays, that sort of general thing. You may have situations where that person is really key to the business, so they do need to be abroad for a certain period of time. But if they go over those permitted absences, we have to start the clock again. So let me give you an example. So I had one client who he stayed in the UK for the first year. He wasn't going over the 180 days absence, so he was fine in year 1. He was fine in year 2. In year 3, he spent too much time in Bangladesh.
Oh.
Okay, so and I'm sort of seeing this after the event. So they come to me and said, look, we've done all the, it looks like we've
done
gone
everything.
over. Hold on a second, you've gone over the 180 days. What does that actually mean? That means that you have to start the clock from that point onwards. From year 3 onwards.
Right.
You see, and you do get a reaction which, oh my goodness,
I'm sure you will.
Start all over again. Is there any way that you could help it? No.
Yeah. Can I just ask though, Grace, because it brings up one thing. What if you have gone abroad in connection with the business? So you've not gone home to see family or to go on your jollies.
Yeah.
You've just gone to various countries even for business purposes.
Yeah.
Is that a reason for that 180
No.
days to be considered as part of the time?
No, because when you sign up for the 180 days. If you go over, they're going to look at exceptional circumstances.
Yeah.
So we're talking about medicals with evidence.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
you were over by a month.
Yes.
Why? Because I was in hospital. Here's the evidence.
Yeah.
You see.
So they'll want to see the notes. They want to see
Absolutely.
doctor's reports.
Yeah.
They
He
want to
couldn't
see
fly.
whether that was
Yeah.
exactly, that's the point I was going to make. That it means that the person actually can't travel. Not I'm
Absolutely.
feeling ill.
Exactly.
I cannot
But I
travel
cannot get
as
on
a
a plane.
result. Yeah.
Applicant may be pregnant.
Yes.
You see, that's a normal. That's reasonable. So, you know, what's exceptional? Well, exceptional will be COVID. Exceptional will be Ebola. Exceptional will be anything that's on the international news where, you know, flights have been stopped.
Which is, and you say exception because in that case it's a bit easier, isn't it, to justify.
Well,
whereas if I say I was in hospital for 6 weeks and that's taken me over the 108, they want to see evidence, they want to see this, they want to see that. And so,
absolutely.
if I can say, it being exceptional means you have got to justify why you qualify for the settlement. Yeah, for at the end of the 5 years. Because otherwise it's going to be, they'll just tell you, no, sorry, we've refused it.
Yeah.
We can extend it. If you still meet the criteria, however,
exactly it. Yeah.
we can extend it. But the problem is that right now you've missed the 180-day target.
Yes.
So we go back to zero from year 3,
Exactly.
which it must have been pretty hard on your
It's
client.
hard. It's very harsh. And as you say, when you talk about exceptional, I mean, anything that's internationally, you know, that's in the public domain, but anything essentially that's outside of your control. But you've got that third-party evidence to say, this is why I couldn't get back on time, you see. Otherwise, they don't care. You've gone over, you have gone over, you knew about that before, you know, when you signed up for this. So it's really, really important that, you know, we can get people their visas, but we're not going to get them past the finishing line unless they observe the strict requirements of the visa.
Yeah. And I think, as you've said, so we do in all sorts of areas get clients saying, is there anything we can do?
Yeah.
Is there a way around it? And there are some things you have to say to them, look, no.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. We can wheel and deal, or we can look at what we can do with other aspects of what you need. But on this particular aspect, we can't help you.
Absolutely.
So it's quite clear, isn't it, to you that no, they must have that 180
Absolutely.
days.
You know, what we do as lawyers is we present it in the best way possible. So you can make a really bad scenario look not so bad. What you can't do is retrospectively go back and try and change something that's happened. You know,
Sorry, Grace. I'm
only
being distracted because there's a spider crawling towards me in the studio, so I apologise for it, but I can't.
It's coming back.
I can't cope if it's there, so sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So, like as I was saying, you
Grace.
know, anything that's outside of control, well, we've got some evidence to say, yeah, look, this is the scenario. We can make the best of what's not a great situation, but we can't just create a scenario. We can't change what's happened in the past. So it's really important that, you know, applicants know about this and they observe it, you know, to the T.
Yes, yeah. Now, just talk about how long do these visas take? And you've already said that you were given 3 months once you're granted to come to the UK.
Yeah.
But how long does the actual process take?
To
I've got
prepare.
everything ready. Yeah, I've got everything ready because that could be as long as anything, couldn't it, to get your documents together. Depends on the client. But then I've got my documents ready. I'm ready to apply. You've applied for the visa for me. How long before I get a decision? And can I speed it up at all?
You certainly can't. Well, okay. So how long? How long is a piece of string? Right. So we put your application in. We are now at the mercy of the Home Office. Okay. I've had situations where an application can come back in a month and you're absolutely not expecting that. I've had a scenario where we've had to push, and this was over COVID period 2020, where it's taken 2 years to get someone, and that was actually the last application I did on the entrepreneur visa. You see, we actually submitted on the last day that it closed, and I don't think we were granted until October. What year are we in? Yeah, earlier this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So I mean, it just depends. Okay, what can you do? Well, you can decide to go for a premium service. Now, under the premium service, they do say that they'll look at it. I mean, it varies depending on which visa application centre you go to, but typically 7 days. In my experience, they don't always come back in 7 days, but they certainly come back quicker than if you were going through the sort of the normal queue. So, and you know, it's a good option for people that are time, you know, pressed, people that need to maybe fly as well, because remember the passports stay at the home office, stay at the application centre until the application is approved. So, you know, where I think that's something that a client would want, I would certainly push for that. Just pay that extra £800 equivalent of, so that you go for the premium service. So at least you know the application's coming back quicker. But generally speaking, you're looking at anything. You really start counting after 3 months, I would say, in my experience. You know, if you've gone past 3 months, then you can start maybe chasing and just seeing potentially what the issue is.
What's happening? Yeah.
Everything that the Home Office do now, you have to pay. So if I want to make an inquiry about what's happening to an application, there's a premium telephone number that you can ring. There's an email. I think they charge £5.
They do.
For an email. And frankly speaking, you really don't get the sort of service that you're expecting for a paid service.
Yes.
You really don't. But your client wants you to push. So you're having to be on the phone for half an hour waiting for them to get back to you. But really it's out of our control in terms of when decisions are going to come. I've put in complaints before. It tends to just stir things up a little bit, but you know, ultimately the decision maker in the application centre, or sometimes actually the decisions come back here, as you may know, they will, you know, you are in a queue and you just have to wait. And if it's Christmas or if it's COVID or if it's some other thing
festival
going on,
or holiday, good luck.
Exactly. So it's good luck, and we'll just do our best to try and get you, you know, get your application approved as soon as possible.
Yeah, Reza, what about you? What's your experience with the timescales? Because I agree with Grace. I mean, talking about visas generally, I mean, how long is a piece of string? I know I did a settlement one recently that came back in 3 weeks in country that I was not expecting. I told them, look, sit down 6 months, just get comfortable, and don't argue with your husband or wife at the time. Don't argue with each other until this all sorts itself out. But then a few weeks before, I submitted another settlement one, and we still haven't got that decision, and that's been, 7 months now? So I agree. What do you think, Reza?
From my experience, because majority of our clients, they apply overseas, so it depends of which country, which visa center. So on Home Office website, it says 3 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, but not all visa centers, they do it in 3 weeks. So it depends on how busy they are, how many applications. And
it's difficult for us, because you're kind of, well, it says there 3 weeks.
It says 3 weeks. What
are you doing?
So choosing which visa center to lodge your application is the key sometimes.
You might have some inside knowledge about
which centres tend to make the decisions quicker than others.
Yes. So we advise clients, okay, some visa centers, for example, most of our market is the Middle East.
Okay.
So they have an option. For example, they can lodge application in Turkey, in Istanbul, or they can lodge it in Dubai, Abu Dhabi. So they are quite flexible. These two places is open for any national. So you can lodge application in that places. But inside country, it depends, as Grace says, the home office, what time of the year.
Isn't it? Don't you agree? It takes much longer than in-country application, but it does out of country. For whatever reason, I'm not quite sure.
Who knows?
Given that they're all supposed to be dealt with by caseworkers wherever they are in the world.
It should be shorter inside country.
More, exactly.
It's just so random, you know, and that's the real frustration when you work with the Home Office, as we do on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. You never get into a rhythm. You know, things change. You know, you'll find that next year they're doing something else and something's changing. So a client's sitting in a position where, okay, we're mid-session and something changes, potentially we have to sort of adapt to that.
Yes.
And, you know, I always say to my clients at the outset, look, I have no control over when this is going to come back.
Yes.
Let's just keep our fingers crossed that it comes back sooner rather than later. We'll do our best to make it as easy as possible for whoever's making the decision. To, you know, it's good to, you know, it's essential to package your application, you know, comprehensively.
Exactly.
You know, filing, indexing, whatever it is your system that you use, so that it's easy for that person to say, right, actually, I'm having a bad day, but I don't mind looking at this one because everything's organised.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so that's kind of the aim when you present it. Does it make sense? And a really key thing as well is, you know, when you've understood your client's application, I always say, you know, don't take anything for granted. If it needs to be explained, explain it, because, you know, maybe because we're used to doing what we do, maybe we can take things for granted, but what I say is you don't take anything for granted, because whoever's looking at that application knows nothing about this person. It's basically a reference number. And anything that, you know, logically you would think, does that need to be explained a bit further?
That looks a bit odd.
You just go that little bit extra just to explain it, so they're not wondering why this is like this or this is like this. And what I have found, I'll say, Linda, is that sometimes clients find me irritating. Oh,
I share your view. My clients have told me, but one client told another when he asked him, "Oh, did you go and see her?" He said, "Oh yeah, but she's asking for too much stuff." Yeah. I'm
asking you questions to help you. I'm trying to. I'd rather ask the questions at this point so we get you through, rather than having to deal with a refusal on something that we could have covered earlier on.
And then you would say to me, "But why didn't you ask me for it?"
Well, exactly.
Because that's the other part, isn't it?
You didn't ask me. So you really have to sometimes you have to go beneath what a client is just saying to you. I always say when it comes to the sort of trainees or anyone who's sort of doing something new, just ask the extra questions. Actually, put yourself in the position of the applicant. And then you would do everything that you would do if you wanted that application to go through for yourself.
Precisely.
You see, so if you have that mindset when you're preparing these applications, then you know the best way to handle it. But you have to ask questions. And clients should really, and this is out to, you know, people watching, you know, offer us information. You know, the way that we operate, you know, information that's given to us is confidential.
Precisely.
You know, it's not here to share with the world and to share with the Home Office. We're going to present your case in the best possible way without, you know, doing anything bad or misrepresenting or misleading or anything like that. So clients need to give us information. You know, I hope that they have the confidence to say, right, I can discuss this with my legal advisor, even though I'm not quite sure. And then, you know, you can find ways to deal with it. And actually, some things that they worry about that maybe hasn't come out when it should have, but, you know, comes out later, you find that there is actually a solution to that. Because they're not experienced or they don't know the process, they're thinking this is a problem, I'm going to hide it away. I say, speak. Give us as much information as possible, and then, you know, we can find a way to you know, work it to your advantage.
I mean, that reminds me of a client who was applying for a visit visa, or he was the sponsor for a visit visa for his mother, who was coming from, I think, somewhere in Asia. And for some reason in my head, I remember kept thinking to myself, why is he using my services for this type of visa? Given that she had, I think, come to the UK before, so I would have thought it was relatively straightforward, it's just a visit visa, etc. But then, and I gave him the forms, let him read through the answers I'd given, etc. And then he came to sort of just sign whatever documents he needed to. And for some reason, I just sort of said to him, did you read through the form and the questions I'd highlighted? Oh, no, I didn't have time. I said, right, 2 minutes, just check now.
Okay.
And he checked through and yeah, everything's fine. And then at the end, parting comment was, oh, I'm so glad we're using your services, because she was refused before for Holland. And, you know, so we thought that we'd better use a lawyer for this one. And I stopped him and I said, sorry, refused for Holland when? And it had been the year before. And we had put on the form, have you ever been refused for a visa to any other country? No. Yeah, exactly. So that, if that hadn't happened, and this is what you're talking about, Grace, if that hadn't happened, we hadn't had that conversation, I wouldn't have known. I would have put the wrong thing on the form. She could have been refused if they had checked, and then that would be a refusal for 10 years.
Absolutely.
Because then that leads us into the sort of false representations or failing to declare area, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And, you know, a lay person is not going to appreciate, you know, it was a mistake. The Home Office don't see it as a mistake. They see it as an intentional. Yes. You were trying to hide something from us. Yes. How could you not know that you've been refused a visa last year? Yes. It doesn't make sense that you wouldn't know that, you see. So, they need to just give us as much information as possible. And, you know, just disclose fully. You know, if something's happened, you know, let's deal with it. You know, it's better to say to somebody, right, because that's happened, I think that this is the end result. That's an informed piece of information that you can give to that person, and they can decide whether or not this is a visa for them. Yes. You know, you're spending a lot of money. Yes. You know, you're using a lot of time. Yes. You want to make sure that, you know, it's not something really silly that prevents you from, you know, going through successfully. Well, exactly. So yeah.
So I think, Reza, you'd sort of touched upon the fact that the visa can lead to settlement. I think we've talked about how long you need to be here in the 180 days and all of that sort of stuff. So then we'd need to then start looking at issues such as family, because some people will want to be able to bring others to the UK during that time. So what are the rules or regulations in relation to family members and whether they can come to the UK?
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, if Reza can start, if Reza knows part of this.
So for all type of the visas, from investor, startup or sole rep, they can bring their family with them and children under 18, they can join. And if the child is over 16, they must live with the parents. So after 5 years or 3 years, there are many applicant settlement, the family they can settle as well. So all type of the visas for sole rep or startup or investor, innovator, all of them, the family they can settle. But Grace mentioned about what you want to say something?
I was just going to add, when you say family, well, we have to be very specific.
Yeah.
Because of course you're talking about a spouse, an unmarried partner, you know, it could be same-sex couples, you know, civil partnerships. So essentially it's, you know, a husband and wife or whatever combination you have of that, and the children under 18. You know, so we're not talking about grandparents. That's not allowed. Uncles and aunties and second cousins, no.
Exactly. All of that, none of that is to be included or added to those types of visas, no matter what your culture or traditions are, because, you know, multi-generational households.
From my experience, because of this sole rep, the requirement of English is A1. It's a very basic. So people, some of them, they hardly speak English. Because the A1 is a basic beginner. So compared to other visas, which is a B2, for example, Innovator is a B2. So B2 is almost before advance, we can say IELTS 5. So sole rep, because the requirement of English is A1, is a good thing, it's easy, but the danger is if the people, they think, okay, sole rep, they can do it themselves, as the Grace says, representing the case for Home Office is not what you do and what you believe, is the paper they see. So they don't see you, they don't see your business, they see your case. So that is, we have had just a few weeks ago, we had a business person came to UK, the visa was refused, it was for visit. So the Home Office unlawfully, so Grace refuse the entry, says, okay, you want to start business, you need the entrepreneur visa, we discussed it. But that was not true, but the client could not explain why I am here. So what we did, we have a consultant about helping them with translation, interpreting, advice, business plan, all other package. So legal part is only one part of the case. So you need to support on that for that client. So we help of the Grace, we send the legal rep to another country to bring the client with and explain to the Home Office, okay, this is a business paper, he wants to do this, that. And after that, the problem was solved.
Yeah.
And,
So what we're talking about, or what you're talking about, Reza, is where even though people have tried to come to the UK, different types of examples, but tried to come to the UK, been refused before because they couldn't express themselves, and we'll come on to that in a moment, and couldn't express themselves, and how through your organisation, ACG, you've been able to look at all the facets of their application, all parts of why they want to come to the UK, and then be able to give them the relevant support to make the likelihood of them getting a visa or being granted leave to enter, as it was in that case, leave to enter without there being too many hiccups. So it's about getting the right advice, speaking to the right advisors in order for them to be able to give you the support packages that you need or what they think is appropriate in order to make the likelihood of being granted your visa higher rather than lower.
Exactly, because there is a culture and language barrier.
Yes.
So if the clients from overseas comes to somebody with the same language, they understand each other better, and the language and culture wouldn't be a barrier. So because of that, we have a different nationality in our consultant specialists, so they can speak the client's languages. So in this way, they help them to get a proper information for a client.
And they feel confident as well.
They feel confident and open up about everything. So the chances refusal
are less. Because that's one thing actually. Maybe because I'd asked the question about who you can bring. It does, as you've said, Reza, it does remind us that there is actually the English language requirement, isn't there? So even though we've got all this stuff about the startups and what we need to show, what you need to show if you're coming as a sole rep, what you need to show, you also need to show that you have sufficient English language, right? And also the tuberculosis as well. We've got that requirement, haven't we?
Police clearance certificates.
Exactly.
All that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Those
so there
are
are some other ticky things that shouldn't be too difficult, but
not at all.
But it depends, doesn't it? I mean, A1 English language to some people is simple and straightforward. But if it's not a language that you have spoken before, that's quite challenging, because the A1 is speaking and listening.
It is.
Right? And then the B1, which is the higher one, is that plus reading and writing.
So and you have to get, I think it's 4.5? I think it's 4.5.
In order to be able to actually get whatever visa or as part of the visa package. So it's not straight, I mean, it depends, doesn't it? I mean, again, we've probably all got copious examples of people who thought they'd passed the English language and couldn't, or didn't think they would and then did pass it. So it's an important requirement, because if you don't get it,
well, if you don't have
it,
you can't get the visa. It's an absolute mandatory requirement. But you know, we should say that, you know, with, as we're talking about the sole rep, yes, the level is A1. The alternative to that is where you have somebody who has a degree certificate. Okay. And we go through an organisation called NARIC. Can't remember the actual full wording of it, but essentially, that's a body which says that your certificate is equivalent to the level, you know, in the UK of a bachelor's or a graduate degree. The key thing there, though, is that whoever's presenting us with a master's certificate or a bachelor's degree, we need a confirmation from the university that, you know, in the main, the course was taught in English. We need a written confirmation from the university. So, you know, if someone is, you know, been working for 15 years and we have this issue, it could potentially be a problem, you know, because you've got to go back and say, here I am, I need a letter from you. That, you know, my course was taught in English. If it's a university, it's normally not a problem. I've had this several times where they can go back. You just have to, it just delays the process, because you've now got to wait for that letter to come in. And then you have to go through NARIC, they want to see the certificate, they want the letter. And by the time they've done their bit, I mean, to be fair to them, they can turn things over fairly quickly if you need emergency servicing. You pay for everything, of course. But that's one way to, you know, meet the English language requirement. You see. You know, if someone's done a degree and in the main the degree was taught in English, you would hope that, you know, if that wasn't an option, that they could pass at A1. You know,
because that's the other option. Even, I mean, I know certainly I've advised where rather than going from NARIC, people need the visas quickly, I said just do the A1
Exactly.
then. Because if they can pass that, then it's not a problem. If I think they're having a problem with the A1, then but they do have a degree certificate of a degree that was taught mainly in English, then we'd certainly go down that route.
Yeah.
But it'd be surprising if that's the problem. But it takes all sorts, doesn't it?
I mean, I've delayed one application because unfortunately the lady just couldn't pass. I think she took 3 attempts. Eventually she passed, but we couldn't submit without that piece of paper. So, none of this is collectively it's a job. I think individually, if we work very methodically, I will say, right, just give me your personal documents first. Let's just check to see whether everything's in order there. You have to read through the CVs, make sure everything looks right. You can redraft things for clients. There's no problem there. But we do take it in nice chunk, bite-sized pieces, so that the client isn't overwhelmed. You know, with oh my gosh, they've asked for so much information, and then the second part is that you now have to get all the company documents. Now, an employee is not going to have access to that necessarily unless they are the director who's a non-majority shareholder, like we spoke about earlier. So now you're having to deal with somebody else in the business who can give you that paperwork. And, again, from the outset, we're saying to people, look, if you're going for this visa, you have to be prepared to give us full disclosure about what's happening with your business. Don't hold anything back. You can't, because, if I don't ask for it, they'll probably ask for it, or you may get a refusal. So the key thing is to work in a very methodical way, give it to the client in bite-sized pieces, and then just say to your client, look, if there's anything that's bothering you, tell me, because, it might be something small. Actually, it might be a huge thing. Let me give you an example. I'll give you another example. I've had clients who are they're in such a rush to get everything done, so they're speeding ahead, and I'm trying to rein them back and say, right, give me this first, and we'll talk about that. Just do it this way. And I've had people who've gone away and gotten tuberculosis certificates. Yes. Now, as you all know, as with the English language, you have to go for an approved centre. Yes. So, I've had situations where I've got my TB certificate. I look at the certificate and I'm thinking, I need to check whether this is on the list.
Well, it's not in the right format, presumably, in the first place.
Well, this is the thing. If they haven't gone through, I think it's the IOM or whatever it is, then you've got to go back and do that again. Yes. You have to give me, why do I have to go back? Yes. Because you didn't get it from them. Why didn't you tell me? Well, we didn't get to it.
You were in a hurry. I've certainly had that well, where you're sort of trying to, as you say, Grace. And it's funny, isn't it? It's when you talk to your fellow professionals, you realise, actually, I've had that too. Right. Yeah, where the clients sort of, because they're eager and they want to, get this done, and they have their own time scale in their mind. But sometimes it's not helpful to rush these things, is it?
It's not at all. Sometimes it's better just to take it step by step by step. And because you've got such a volume of documents that you're looking at, it is easy to miss stuff, actually, so you have to be to me, I find it very painstaking, particularly when you're looking at bank statements. Yes. There's so many things on there that, there's a little trick that I do, which I'll share with you, which is, when it comes to bank statements, I always do a thing where I highlight certain things. Why? Because I want to draw the decision maker to that. I don't want them looking at anything else on there. I don't want them to look at.
Let's hope the Home Office are watching this.
Don't look at highlighted documents from David Marlico. So, you want to, it's a psychological thing maybe, draw their attention to the things that you want them to see. And then, they won't look at, they might find other things to pick holes in.
Yes.
See? So slow and steady with these sort of applications definitely is the best way to go, because you're dealing with so much paperwork. Yeah. And, even for us sometimes it could get overwhelming, especially when the documents are coming, and it's all confused.
Yeah, and the client, I think as soon as they send the document, rings you, have you got it? Yeah. And you're saying, well, hang on, I'm just dealing with something, I'll deal with yours in a minute. Yes, and sometimes it is about you sort of taking control.
Yeah, and I think, let me just put it out there, and I'm sure Reza, you'll agree, I think, we're dealing with a lot of clients all at the same time. So this is a juggling exercise. And, clients, you're their only client, but, I always say in a very nice way, that we're very busy, just I'll get to it. And, once you kind of stage things for a client, I always find that that's nice for them, because they know, she's not going to get back to me for another week,
Yes.
you know, rather than
Yes.
just leaving it open. And you,
Yes.
you try and really, what's the word? You try and open with that so that they know, right, don't talk to me for 2 weeks. Don't even speak to me because I'm not going to look at it, you know, because you do have clients who will email, you know, and WhatsApp is, you know, it's as beautiful as it is.
Yes.
Dangerous.
Yes.
It's very dangerous.
Yes, yeah.
you
I know. I've had a client who said to me, "I sent you this 10 minutes ago. You haven't opened it."
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Why
hard.
are you putting your blue ticks
Yeah,
on?
why there's no blue? The 2 blue ticks are not.
Yeah, so you know, we're just
Yeah.
trying to manage everybody.
Yeah.
So you know, you're trying to treat everyone, you know, equally, and it's just a
absolutely.
question of, you know, what's important today, now.
Sure.
So once clients understand that, and you explain things to them, it's absolutely fine. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see the sort of stuff that you come across.
Yes.
I think problem solving is key as well, because sometimes, you know, something gets presented to you, and like, how do I get over this issue? You know, how do we
Yes.
deal with this aspect? And I think if you're in your cover letter, if you're explaining things that are not obvious from papers, or you can't do it without writing it out, it's always better to take that option.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To sort of just go that extra mile, like I said earlier.
Sure.
To just explain things.
Sure.
So that, you know, whoever's looking at it knows it's quite clear. And at least
Okay.
they can't refuse it for that, because you can
Well,
go
yes,
back
exactly.
to your document and say, well, I
If
did
they
mention
was
that.
there. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And if they do refuse it, it's easier for you to then
Much easier.
highlight it
Yeah.
and point it out,
Yeah.
either in an
100%.
AR or any other
Yeah.
alternative challenge that you choose to use.
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, I've had. There was one case that we had, and actually we'd gotten the 4 family members. We'd got them through on the sole representative visa, but we had a situation where their son was just turning 18. But because we didn't know how long it was going to take to process the sole representative, he'd already been here on a foundation course. And so now we decided to, you know, put him on the tier 4 visa, you see, because we didn't know whether or not we'd get a decision on the sole representative visa before his 18th birthday.
Yeah.
So what happens is everything goes fine. In fact, the visa approval does come after his 18th birthday. Is that correct? Yeah. So it comes after, but because he's not yet 18, we can now switch him from a tier 4 student to a dependent.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
But what happened is, when the Home Office looked at the application, they completely refused it on a completely different area of law. I mean, I don't. And you know, we looked at it, we said, how could this possibly be refused?
Wow.
We've gone through all the checkpoints. It's a dead cert approval. It was refused. The good news though is that because of the way that they've changed the appeal process,
Yes.
we were able to get it rectified before we went to the extra expense of going to an appeal.
Oh,
Because
good.
we absolutely
Yes.
said, look, you've got the wrong piece of legislation here. Here's the cover letter. Go back and look at this again. They did that. It took a little bit of time, but they did it. But you know, that saved the client probably a good £2,500.
Yeah.
You know, not having to go for an appeal,
Yeah.
which we would have absolutely won.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the time it would have taken as well with the
Exactly.
the
You're talking
challenge.
about a
It
good
would have taken
6
you
months to a
months.
year,
Yeah.
easily,
Yeah,
to get a
whilst your
hearing.
client's kicking their heels and asking what's
Exactly,
going on and why the
exactly.
Home Office made such a bad mistake.
Right.
So that takes us back, doesn't it, to the family member side. So we had talked about the family members, we talked about spouse or the equivalent of, and then children as
Yeah.
well. And are these, if I ask this question, those family members, can they come at the same time as the applicant, or does it wait for the applicant to come first and then bring the family members? And I suppose, along with that question, is there a maximum number?
Okay, so I can answer that, unless you want to take that, Reza.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So essentially, sometimes it comes down to cost, because putting these applications is extremely expensive.
Yes.
So because you're paying per applicant, you're also paying the immigration health surcharge.
Yes.
Okay, so you know, it all totals, and you've got your legal fees as well. So what I find is that, and I encourage, is that if there's no reason to leave somebody out, just and cost is not a barrier, do everybody at the same time. Why? Because you know, you're now on the same path. However, you do have, because it is expensive, and where you've got family members where there's 6 people, you know, that's quite common in certain, you know, cultures. Sometimes they do stage it, so you'll put in the oldest children first.
Yes.
So anyone that's looking like they're hovering near 18, you want to really get those ones in first. But the 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, you can say, right, we'll do this the following year.
Yes.
Because they're minors. And if they're under 18, we can bring them in afterwards. So that isn't really ever a problem, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, if a client feels that they want to stage it, if they feel that that's the right way to go, we can do that. If I would always encourage them to do everyone together, but it's an option. It just depends. You do that on a case-by-case basis. Yeah.
Reza, do you have anything you want to add to that, or do you think Grace has covered the family aspect?
Yeah, Grace covered almost everything. Just one thing, for those people who they don't meet the English requirement, we provide online tuition, English tuition.
Yes,
so we
that's
have
good.
an experienced English tutor.
Yeah.
So in 3 months' time, they can get to A1 level. So with the online tuition. So for those people who has got a plan to come, so it's a long-term plan, at least 6 months a year, they have a time. So A1 is quite straightforward. To the B1 and B2 even in 6 months or 9 months they can reach if they wanna study.
Want to go down that
so
road.
English wouldn't be a barrier for those people who wants to come.
Okay. Then thank you both of you for that. Then looking at, I think Reza, you had touched upon this question I'm going to ask slightly earlier or at the beginning. It's looking at the switching aspect. I think Grace as well, some of the topics you've raised or issues you've raised have mentioned the switching aspect of this. So switching is effectively moving from one visa category to another. So you start as an innovator, you go to, I don't know, sole rep, to those types of things. Are you able to switch from a sole representative into any other category?
That's a really good question, and I don't think I've faced that. I would. Okay, so what would I do? When you look at guidance, it will tell you which categories you can switch into. From my experience, I don't think that you can be on a sole rep visa and then switch to another visa. You have to look at the pathway as well.
Yes.
Someone on a sole rep visa is not going to become a student, for example. I mean, that might be
it doesn't make
sense. That might be a
because
silly
the
example.
path to settlement is then up to 10 years then, isn't it?
Well, it's not even 10 years now. You can't really settle if you're just on a student visa.
Yes.
If you've got 10 years lawful
Indeed, yes.
combination, that's
yes,
fine.
then that's fine.
Yeah. So I don't think you can switch from a sole rep to, let's just say, a tier 1 investor visa. I think you'd have to go back to your home country and make a fresh application, you see. It's something that I would check if that's something that somebody wanted to do. It's very unlikely that someone's going to switch from a sole rep. The standard is, the bar is so high. You're going from a sole rep where there's no minimum level of investment. You just need to show that it's a genuine business and, as you said earlier, meet all the criteria. So to go from a sole rep to a tier 1 investor, that would be crazy in my mind, because you're looking at £2 million. You have to have it as a prerequisite. It has to be transferable. There's so many little niggly bits in the old, in the existing tier 1 investor visa that it doesn't make any sense to want to do that.
I mean, you could switch though, couldn't you, from a sole rep, for example, to settlement on the basis of, when I say settlement, sorry, the 2.5 years, for example, of the spouse. So you're here, you meet someone, and then you decide that, well, I want to be with this one. Do you see what I mean? You could switch. But I think what you're trying to say is that it's
if
limited.
You're talking about business.
Yeah, if it's limited. So if it's just the business ones, then there are limits to that, aren't there? But if you go outside of that box, as it were, to a spouse, because the only requirement for that is that you're on a visa that's more than 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think you could certainly do that. But but going back to the point you're making is that if you're in one business category, or not one, but if you're in that particular business category, it'd be difficult to switch to another. I don't know whether Reza, you're of the same view or you have a different view.
I think all the visa who lead to the settlement can be switched from one to others.
Yes.
The exception, for example, student visa, English language course, which is 11 months, you cannot switch your visa to the student visa. You need to leave the country and come back.
Yes.
Because that is a short period.
Yes, so it's a short course visa, isn't
short
it?
Course.
Yeah.
But if it's not limited to the time, then you can, for example, the student, they can switch to the work visa. And we have some students, they come for a master after they finish, they switch it to the work visa.
Yes.
And So those, I think, general rule, if any visa can lead to the settlement, can be switched to other type of visa, provided they meet the requirement of other visa.
And I think, Rach, what you're talking about is, does it make sense to switch from a startup or from a sole rep to an investor?
Exactly.
Why would you do that?
I suppose it would make more. Okay, so I mean, to me, in my mind, it would make more sense if you were switching from a tier 1 investor to a sole rep, but then you're essentially it's a completely different application.
Yes.
You know, how do you just say, well, I've got my business, I've established a business here, which I've got my visa for. Now I want to have a branch of my office here as well. So
of another business. But if I'm an investor and I've got that sort of money,
exactly.
I don't know. But I don't know. Some investors would have various businesses on the go at the same time.
So maybe you have somebody who is in the high net worth bracket where yes, they have been able to establish a business here, but actually they've got several businesses back in home territory.
Yes.
And now they're looking, and it makes sense for them to say, right, actually, let's get a branch here.
Yes.
Do I want to be? Does he specifically want to be the representative? Well, we'd have to go through the checklist and see whether he's able to qualify.
And also whether they have that. Maybe they don't have that investor level of funding anymore. They don't have that money anymore. So they intended maybe to use it for a particular period of time, but now find the business is not going as well. They'll actually use the sole rep one, because that one they're more likely to get approval. Because they have that sort of links in whatever country it is, their home country, etc., and are able to then open a business up here in the UK rather than again look at the 5-10 million pound sort of investment, which to continue to show that you have that can also sometimes be challenging. It's one thing showing you I've got £2 million. It's another thing when I'm going for an extension or renewal to continue to show that I have invested that 2 million, and that 2 million did actually go into what I intended it to go for.
Not to want to go into the whole thing about the investor visa, but when you come to extension, there's a minimum requirement to show that you've invested that money. Now that's money that you already had from the beginning. They're not asking you for another 2 million. No, they're asking, what have you done with that money? Have you met the requirements of the visa to have maintained that investment in the UK? Now, as you say, if business wasn't doing well, particularly somewhere else, they may have had to use funds to, push elsewhere. So, that comes down to, bottom line is whether or not they're going to be able to get the extension for the visa, And if they're not able to, then of course an option then is to think, okay, well, we've got this business, let's do the sole rep. To go to your question, could they do a switch? Well, I would say, I would personally, I'd want to check it out, but if you say that they can switch in country without having to go back to the home territory, again, that's very possible.
Again, I think the answer is that it's not all categories that can switch. It depends on what it is your needs are, and whether you still meet the requirements of the previous visa, or you need to then move to a different category. Because if your path is with a view to settlement, if that's the road you're going down, I think it's very important to make sure you start off with the right visa that can give you the easiest pathway to settlement. I don't know whether you both agree with that, but that's what I would have thought.
Yeah, definitely. And there is one difference between sole rep visa holder with startup visa holder. If you come with startup visa, you are allowed to work for somebody else in addition to your project startup. But sole rep, you can't work for somebody else. So your employer must be a
job.
Well, because it's supposed to be as if you're part of that company. So if you're an integral part or the representative, how would you have? I suppose on a practical level, how would you have the time or ability to work elsewhere if you're doing your 40 hours or whatever it is in the business?
One question just that came to my mind as you said that is often clients ask, with the sole rep visa, is there a minimum that I have to pay the representative? And the answer to that question is there isn't a minimum. However, if you've got somebody who's operating here at a certain level, a certain skill level, certain experience, seniority, they basically fit the package, you have to pay them at what I would call the market rate. You can't have somebody here running your office and you're paying the minimum wage. It's just not gonna make sense. And that will be a question mark, is this a genuine? That's what we talk about, the genuineness.
Yeah.
Is it realistic for you to have this person running this office and you're only paying them this amount of money? So, you know, we're talking, you know, what we'd say, you know, this sort of role could be a £2,500 plus a job per month. So that's something that the business needs to be able to sustain, you know, all the way through to extension. Because, you know, if you're dropping it so drastically, you know, there has to be a reason for that. You have to explain it. And, you know, the Home Office will question whether or not you're doing this for the reason that it's intended.
Yes.
You see, so, you know, I always say to my clients is, look, you already run your business. You know what works in terms of the viability of the business, what's sustainable. Apply the same logic here. Don't just say, I'm just after the settlement. You know, you have to do all, you know, do all the, you know, minimum, you know, things like minimum wage, UK employees legislation all comes into play.
Yes.
Now, I'm not an expert in that, but, you know, you're not going to be paying people necessarily at minimum wage. Holidays, you know, all those things you have to observe. And in fact, having said that, you do have to produce a contract for this application, an employment
This
contract.
employee, yeah.
And we advise clients, because they're not going to know necessarily what are the
terms that should be in the contract.
Right,
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll say to them, right, what are you intending to pay? Okay, we'll incorporate that into your employment contract, and now you've got all the legals covered, you know, when you're presenting to the Home Office, because after all, you're operating in the UK.
Yes.
Right. So
that because I was wondering that actually, what came into my mind is, does that mean that the person has to pay at least at minimum wage level? I mean, it's another thing as to whether it's a comparative salary, but I suppose it brings up a problem for some people, because again, it's about justifying that you're able to afford to pay that person at that rate.
Absolutely.
Because maybe in whatever country you're in, the amount of salary then is reasonable, is okay for them, comparative to the standard of living and comparative to market demands in the home country.
Yeah,
but if suddenly they're going from, for example, what would be the equivalent of, I don't know, £5,000 salary in their home country, you couldn't pay them that in the UK. You would at least be looking at, I don't know, £16,000 or more, depending on what the job is, not the role. Because if you want them to come and set up in the UK, it's a high demand job, I would have assumed.
Exactly.
So you've got really got to do your homework, haven't you? And show that the finances are in order. And that you can cope with sending somebody to UK, paying them that amount, and justify why would you spend 50, 30, 20, whatever, £1,000 on this person setting up your organisation in the UK, when back in their home country you're paying them £5,000.
Well, exactly.
The equivalent of.
Yeah. So it all, as you quite rightly pointing out, it has to make sense, and that's what we said right at the beginning.
Yes.
You know, you can't look at someone's balance sheet or turnover, whatever it is you look at, and say you can't question that this is a good idea. And what we should say to the people watching as well is that, you know, the Home Office do specifically use the oanda.com website to do the conversion. So again, right at the very beginning, you're saying to your client, look, everything that you provide to us in terms of your statements, we're going to do the conversion so we can actually see what this looks like in terms of GBP. You see, does it make sense? And you know, if a client says, well, if I say, well, you need to be paying at least at this level, then we need to really check with them that they can afford that. Because that money to pay that salary is actually coming from overseas. Yes, exactly. Which is the point that you're making. Exactly. You know, and so it has to balance out. You know, you can't be paying them that much there and paying them something different here.
Unless, of course, it's justified because what you're setting up, once it works, will generate the relevant income. And then because you're opening up a branch, my branch in the UK will be making £100,000, and therefore, once it's up and running, that justifies why I'm sending this person over and paying him £50,000.
In the business plan, if you feel that that's something that you need to broach, then you put it down. You know, you put it there, because that's the best place to explain something like that.
Exactly.
But of course, you're producing a contract. The affidavits come along. You know. Saying various things that you're undertaking to do, and the company has to be able to afford that salary. It's not possible to do it if you think you're going to scrimp and save on the salary, unless you're able to say what you just said, which is, okay, we're going to pay a minimal salary for now. So, you know, what would be normally a £3,000 per month we're going to pay you 1,500 to start
Yes.
with, because
Yeah.
we're just opening the
Yes. Yeah,
You really-
which perhaps will be quite prudent, unless you've got that sort of income, which would be quite prudent because you don't want to sort of put yourself into a difficult position, even if the home
and
office
that's good
grants
business at the end of the day.
It is.
That's what we're here to do, business.
Well, exactly. I wonder if either of you have any sort of anecdotal tales or things that people may be thinking about in terms of what could be pitfalls or difficulties and things or difficult situations that your clients have had, where you've been able to support them. I know you've both sort of given examples already, and I've certainly given one or two. But I wonder if either of you have any anecdotal or things that you think, look, definitely don't do A or definitely don't do B.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have anecdotal.
I've got one. Do you want to? I'm always jumping in here. I mean, with the sole representative visa, there's this weird thing that it says that you must not already have established your branch here in the UK.
Yes.
Right. And then it goes on to say, and this is off the top of my head, but if you have, the business must not be operating
I've seen that.
you must have a bank account.
Yes.
So that's just confused me.
Yes.
So what's happened is, this was about maybe 3 years ago. A client came to us. He actually came to us through his accountant. Okay, the accountant was trying to be over helpful. So what the accountant did is, before I had anything to do with the case, he went off and incorporated a limited company in the UK.
Right. Okay.
Under the name of the business. So now, months later, or however long it is, they come along to us, and very proud to say we've incorporated the business. And I look at it and go,
And you look at the incorporation date and you go, oh dear.
Why have you done this? Why have you done this? So, we've read the policy guidance and it says that you can what was the point of doing this? If you can explain to me what the point of this was, then I'm with you. But here are the conditions for that. Does he have a bank account? No, he doesn't have a bank account. How can someone establish a bank account when they've never been here?
Yes.
Do you see? So what happened was this, and luckily, the gentleman that came to us, the actual client, he's a wealthy businessman, corridors of power and this whole thing. So they incorporate a company in the business name that he wants to. It was his original choice.
Right.
I say, scrap that. We're not doing that. Okay, because we're not meeting the other conditions. Okay. Luckily, he does have 5 other companies that he can pick and choose from. I'm like, thank you. So what we do is we then say to him, okay, out of all the businesses that you've got here, which is the business that's performing really, really well that you because it's a group of companies.
Sure.
So we're able now to say, right, we can't use that one because you've messed up by jumping the gun, but we can use this company, which is, it's all a group, so it's all part of the same business, but we can use this company because this company has no presence in the UK. So, when the caseworker does a little check on the company's house, they're not going to find this company. They're going to find this company. If they find this company, they're going to ask these questions about why you set up this business. So that's a scenario. But the good thing with that was that we caught it right at the beginning. So before we got in any paperwork from the client, we were able to say, right, stop, don't send us that, send us this. The accountant wasn't very happy with me. Because, I said, well, you've done this, the best thing.
Well, yeah, but he's an accountant, so he has his role,
then he's
right?
got no business doing them.
Yeah, I guess not. I can see.
They were trying to be helpful, but actually, he put us back a little bit. But luckily, we were able to recover.
Yeah.
So, and that's you said an example. That's something where luckily they didn't do anything more than that, and actually the business wasn't operating. They were just trying to, show the client that they were doing a good piece of work. We've had other occasions where, somebody, I don't know, someone said something and they present a document and I look at it later and I said, well, why did you present that document? That document doesn't help me, because you've already said this. So now what we have to do is we have to maintain, we can't contradict what you've already said. And that happens quite a lot, actually.
Sometimes I think sometimes with some people, they want to sort of some people think they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
So they start by taking the first steps and then realise, oh, hang on, this is a bit challenging. Maybe I need to get some advice.
Yeah.
But the steps that they've taken sometimes can put them in some difficulty. Others think that they're being helpful. If I give all of this stuff to the lawyer, then she'll be able to do this, and that's the end of it. Because certainly I remember, I think one client who said to me, when I was doing his application for, I think, settlement, so he's going for his indefinite leave, and his words to me were, this is going to be really easy for you, is what my client said to me.
Because he's done all the work.
Yeah, well, exactly. He'd done everything. He set it all up. It was just a matter of me writing a nice letter at the front and then submitting all of it. Until I said to him, okay, that all looks all in order. Have you done your life in the UK?
Yeah.
And he had 2 days to go, by the way. And he said to me, no, I don't need to do life in the UK. I said, but you're going for indefinite leave to remain. You do need. He said, no, that's for people applying for British citizenship.
Well,
and
they
so I
changed
had
it,
to.
didn't they?
Well, yeah, and he kept in. The funny thing is, we sort of went into a yes, you do, no, you don't, yes, you do, no, you don't sort of moment for about 2 minutes or so. Until then, I sort of thought, well, right, how am I going to break this sort of deadlock?
Yeah.
So then I just simply looked on my phone and sent him the link, and I just said, have a look at this. And then 2 minutes later, he phoned back and went, what do I do? And I said, well, if you can't do the life in the UK within the next 2 days for us to submit the application, you have to apply for an extension.
Yeah.
You do another 2.5 years,
Yeah.
and at some point during that period, you do your life in the UK.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then he said to me, no, I don't want to do that. It means I'll be here for 12.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so sometimes it's good to get the advice early, isn't it? That's what I'd advise people.
Definitely.
I certainly advise viewers at home.
Yeah.
That it's better to get the advice early so that then you can sort of make sure
Just,
you know what to do.
Yeah.
And also because we all know the law changes sometimes as much as you change your socks.
Yeah.
And that's why we talked about the political part of it. And unfortunately, it is one of those areas where it sort of changes with the seasons. So if you get, because with some of my clients, they'll say, I'll be seeing you in 6 months' time because I've given them the information they need for the next 6 months.
Right.
And then I'd say to them, but come back to me in 3 months because let's just check it's still the same pathway. Because sometimes the rules change and suddenly a new requirement comes, and I know if they come to me after the 6 months, they'll then moan and tell me that I should have told them.
Yeah. Exactly.
About the change that was 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And with anybody who's already got their visa, whatever the visa type it is, you know, really and truly, you need to be at least having that conversation with your advisor 6 months before that visa is going to expire.
Yes.
You know, don't come 2 months. I mean, people do 2 months prior.
Yeah.
Well, if there's something that you've missed, you know, we're going to have to do a lot of fast paddling to get you across the boat. So if for the viewers, if they're out there and they've got visas, you know, don't wait till, you know, it's kind of like there's not much wriggle room, because, you know, we've got other work that we're doing as well. You can't always just drop everything because someone's got an emergency. It doesn't always happen that way. You try to as much as possible, especially if it's, you know, a repeat client. But I always say to clients where we've got the visa, right, before this visa expires, come back to me 6 months, at least 6 months before you're due to renew. So we've got enough time to do those adjustments, as you say.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. Reza, are there any last words of wisdom that come to mind? Or just get the advice early, really? That's the point, isn't it?
The engineer says don't fix it if it's not broken.
Yeah, exactly. exactly.
Yeah.
Well, can I just finish by saying thank you to both of you so much for being
welcome.
here today.
You're welcome.
For helping our viewers and potential clients also to understand the system and understand how it works. So, of course, everyone who watches this program regularly, or if you're a first timer, know that how to contact me. I'm on Facebook. You see Legal Hour on Facebook. You see Omega Live. You can contact me through there. If there's any inquiries you have for either Grace or Reza, I can pass those on quite happily and easily to them. Really, our advice is today is that think about what visa you want. Think about the requirements. You can even call just to find out what are the requirements, what do we need to show. Whilst you work towards that and work towards your target, whether it be with a view to settlement or just because you want to bring some business and expand your business, and the UK market is a market that you're interested in. I hope you've enjoyed this evening. You've taken lots of information and knowledge from what we have told you. I will be back, of course, at some other point. So no doubt you'll be with me on that day. So thank you so much, viewers watching. My name is Linda Appiah. This is Omega Live TV, and good night.
At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them. At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them. At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them. At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them. At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them. At World Remit, we understand what the journey is about, how it can sometimes take a little distance to bring us a little closer together. With ways to save more when you send more, World Remit is here for you, so you can be there for them.